Episode 15, The Fall of the Ottoman Empire, when maps were drawn in ink and people paid in pain. When the battlefields fell silent, those who sat in smoky back rooms began drawing lines that would bleed for centuries. Today, we'll step into those dimly lit negotiation rooms, walk through the burned marketplaces of cities that lost their names overnight, and witness how from the ashes of a 600-year empire, the modern Middle East was born, with all its pain, betrayal, and hope. Part 1. The Twilight of Empire. Its size, its last breath, and a changing world. At the dawn of the 20th century, the Ottoman Empire still carried the echo of a bygone glory that had once stretched across 3 continents. Historical estimates place its maximum territory at several million square kilometers, making it one of the largest empires in human history. By the end of World War I, what remained was mostly the Anatolian heartland, the newborn Republic of Turkey, covering around 770 to 783,000 square kilometers, just a fraction of its former size. An empire that once ruled the Balkans, Arabia, the Caucasus, and North Africa was now being carved up by victors' pens. Soldiers were replaced by diplomats, and maps became weapons. Part 2. Lands Lost, a narrative of how the empire was dismantled. Picture this. In the morning, Baghdad's bazaar is bustling. By afternoon, British troops enter the city and raise a new flag. In Damascus, French officers march through narrow streets like conquerors. In the ports of the Levant, the language of the administration changes overnight. Within months, millions realized their homeland had vanished from the map. 3 main forces drove this breakup. 1. The ambitions of the great powers, especially Britain and France. 2. The rise of local nationalisms and revolts, Arab, Armenian, and Greek uprisings. 3. Secret pre-war deals that predetermined the fate of entire regions. The most infamous of these was the Sykes-Picot Agreement, 1916, a clandestine pact dividing the Middle East between Britain and France, sowing the seeds of a century of distrust. After the war, the San Remo Conference, 1920, made these zones official through mandates. France over Syria and Lebanon, Britain over Iraq and Palestine. Even oil deals were written into these papers. San Remo guaranteed France a 25% share of Mesopotamian oil. But the division wasn't just diplomatic, it was deeply human. Iraq. Ottoman provinces fell under British rule, later reorganized into a monarchy handpicked by London, ensuring British access to oil. Syria and Lebanon. French troops entered Damascus. Local governments were crushed, artificial borders drawn, many of which still define the region today. Palestine. The contradictions between McMahon's promises to the Arabs and the 1917 Balfour Declaration promising a national home for the Jewish people to Zionist leaders ignited one of history's longest-running conflicts. Then came the Mosul question, a rich oil region contested between Turkey and Britain. Though originally assigned differently in Sykes-Picot, post-war diplomacy and petroleum interests kept Mosul under British influence as part of Iraq, formalized after years of debate and arbitration by the League of Nations. Part 3. Treaties and Betrayals, Sykes-Picot, Balfour, Sèvres, and Lausanne. What was signed and what was promised rarely matched. The Sykes-Picot Agreement 1916 secretly divided Arab lands. The Balfour Declaration 1917 promised a Jewish homeland, and the Hussein-McMahon Correspondence 1915-16 had pledged Arab independence in return for revolt. But all 3 contradicted one another, leaving behind deep feelings of betrayal. In 1920, the Treaty of Sèvres was signed, formally dismantling the Ottoman Empire and stripping it of nearly all its territory. But it never took full effect. Resistance was already brewing in Anatolia. leading to the Turkish War of Independence and the birth of a new republic. Part 4. The Anatolian Uprising. From Samsun to Lausanne. Amid chaos rose a commander known for his defense of Gallipoli, Mustafa Kemal Pasha. On May 19, 1919, he landed in Samsun and declared that Anatolia would decide its own fate, a date now celebrated as the beginning of modern Turkey. His nationalist forces fought fiercely, from Sakarya to Dumlupınar, eventually defeating foreign troops and abolishing the Sultanate. In 1923, the Treaty of Lausanne officially recognized the Republic of Turkey and its borders. Part 5. The Human Cost. Displacement and the Great Fire of Smyrna. Every line drawn on the map left scars on the ground. Between 1922 and 1923, about 1.5 to 1.6 million people were uprooted in the Greek-Turkish population exchange, one of the largest forced migrations in modern history. The Great Fire of Smyrna, 1922, consumed entire districts, killing thousands and displacing tens of thousands more. Refugees lined the docks, ships came and went, families were torn apart. These were not just political consequences, they were human tragedies. The fall of the empire didn't just destroy a political system, it unleashed waves of ethnic cleansing, exile, and grief that still echo across the region today. Part 6. Iran, Watchful Eyes. Lessons from a Neighbor's Fall. Iran, emerging battered from World War I, closely watched its Western neighbors collapse. The fall of such a massive empire taught Reza Khan, later Reza Shah, a crucial lesson. Internal weakness invites foreign decisions. He accelerated modernization, a national army, railways, and state institutions, determined to prevent Iran from suffering the same fate as the Ottomans. Part 7. Legacy. Borders drawn with rulers and politics. The Middle East we know today is largely a product of those years. Borders drawn by outsiders, states created overnight, and nations split along ethnic and religious lines. In the background of it all, oil, power, and the global game of empires. Every foreign division leaves an internal wound. Maps changed, people vanished, and memories still bleed. End of episode 15 and the promise of episode 16. In our next chapter, episode 16, the Officers of Shadows will meet 10 of the most skilled, ambitious, and feared officers of the Ottoman army during World War I. From Enver, Talat, and Jamal Pasha to the defenders of Medina and commanders of forgotten frontiers. Heroes to some, villains to others, each one a symbol of the empire's final heartbeat. If you want to know how a handful of men shaped the fate of an empire, don't miss episode 16. This is only the beginning of the next chapter of history, so make sure your notification bell is on, because the next episode is one of the most shocking and revealing yet, and you won't want to miss it.